All right, here we are, and here we go. It's hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show. I promise to try to be better this hour. Telephone lines always available for you. The super text line more so than the telephone lines over the next 30 minutes or so, because if you want to get a quick question in for our next guest, that's probably the best way to do it. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. You guys know me by now, and you know that I love talking to anybody and everybody that involves themselves in the political world, no matter where they come from, no matter their background, and no matter their political affiliation. I'm interested in getting you the information that you need to know to be the best informed audience on planet Earth. And with that in mind, and I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. I think far too often we get pigeonholed into categories, and we find ourselves dismissing others that are pigeonholed into categories that don't necessarily define them. That said, I love for all comers to come on this radio show, and I invite everybody that wants to come on in the spirit of conversation and even in the spirit of potential disagreement. We might have different priorities, but let's find out what those priorities are, and let's figure out where the audience is on these various issues. All of that to say, our next guest, I had an opportunity. I don't know if he remembers this or not, but we met. We met down at the Abrego Garcia hearing downtown Nashville. Jim Torino was down there watching the proceedings go on, and he and I happened to be standing next to one another, and I'm like, this guy looks like he knows what's going on. Yeah. Was it an American flag on your lapel? There was something on your lapel, and I was like, are you someone sitting as a political figure? Are you a politician? You said, no, but I'm running. And you handed me your card that day, and lo and behold, here's Jim Torino. He's running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District, and he joins us this afternoon on The Murphy Show. Hello.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for inviting me, and I do remember that day.
Yeah, it was interesting to say that. I mean, look, I don't take any issue from what went down. Folks voiced their displeasure. Some folks voiced their pleasure with what was going on, and that's what the American way is all about, is the right to peaceably assemble, right?
I got to speak that day, and I don't know if you remember, but, it wasn't really taken up for Mr. Garcia as it was taken up more so for his right to due process. And I think that's really what most people are doing down there. And just before I got up to speak, there was a gentleman who came through the crowd with a megaphone. Do you remember this?
I do.
And he was...
Was this the guy that was proselytizing?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and people wanted to quiet him and move him along and shush him. And I said, this guy doesn't recognize that we're really there for his rights as well. For the rights of all. So, but anyway, here we are.
So we'll talk about that. I want to talk about the issue of immigration and your thoughts on that. But before we do, just tell folks who you are, what you're about, and what compelled you to throw your hat in the ring for political office.
Yeah, it's where do you start, right? I'll start with I'm a dad. It's one of the best things I've done in my life. My wife and I are a blended family. We have 10 kids. Oldest is in his 30s, youngest is 10. And
you said 10? Wow.
That's right.
You're a glutton for punishment, Jim.
It's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. That's great. Really, truly. And so, my mom had told me at one time, I was a younger man, I was complaining about something. She said, if you don't like something, stop complaining, go do something about it. And, what are you going to do? And so in business, and I'm the COO of a pretty well-known healthcare company called Station MD, people come to me with complaints all the time. Employees come to me, want to change things. And my suggestion is don't come to me with a complaint. Come to me with a solution. If you got a problem, come to me with a solution. We'll figure out how to implement it and how to execute it. And so it was a very strange confluence of events at the beginning of the year. Let me just digress for a minute or two. So in my corporate gig, I'm, as I mentioned, the lead operator for this company that helps some of the most vulnerable in our country, those that are disabled, they're intellectually and developmentally disabled. And if you can imagine being at home with a child that's got cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair, to take that kid to the ER if something's wrong is quite the undertaking. And so our company value proposition is you can call us, you can speak to one of our physicians, you can see us on video, and we'll help you out. And most times you don't have to go to the ER. So we're helping a lot of these folks that, are really, truly the most vulnerable. In 2016, my wife and I started a nonprofit, a foundation called the Friend Foundation. And today we help those that are homeless or at risk for homelessness, those that are recovering from some addiction or from incarceration. And again, these are folks that are truly, the most vulnerable in our community. And, I started to think through, as we go into helping people in the nonprofit, one of the things that we recognize is that the system doesn't always work very well. And it's not to throw shade on anybody, it's just that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. And we recognized there were a lot of things in Tennessee that weren't working well. And we wanted to change that. We wanted to help folks. It's what do they need and how can we help them get it? Those are the two questions that we ask. And so when we started to look into some of the things that we could do, some of the things that we could impact at a local level, we actually got involved with a local politician, a local state representative who was on the opposite aisle of me. And we went to him and said, hey, look, there's a problem here and someone needs to help us fix it. And he was very gracious and he helped us. And we were very instrumental in pushing a bill across here this year that is forcing the state of Tennessee to go back and review some of its policies and practices. And how does the money get to the people that needed the money? I mean, that's the basic overview. Okay. And so, when I started thinking about the future of Tennessee, and my kids live here. We raised our kids here. Our kids have gone to school here. They're going to college here. They're going to live and hopefully have grandkids near us so we can be with our family. My question to myself was, are we better off now than we were before? And if not, what are we going to do about that? And the fact that we are helping these folks, on a regular basis, both in my professional and personal life, where you really get to see people that need a lot of help, the question you ask is, well, what are we doing about it? And if I find that there's something that I can step into and lean into to help make people's lives better, I'm going to do that. And so I started asking questions about, well, in this district, has our life gotten better with the representation that we have today? And so, in the business world, when you hire somebody, if they don't do a good job, time to hire somebody else.
Let them go, sure.
And so, I started looking into, well, the gentleman that holds this seat now, really what has he done for the district and the folks of Tennessee? And I really couldn't find too much that's been done to help the people in this district. And I said, well, you know what? It goes back to what my mom said. If you want something to change, lean in and make that change happen. And so
and our guest is Jim Torino. He is running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District. I don't know if you have any, has there been any other Democrats announced in the race? Are you alone or
there's
are there some
others? Two others that have
okay.
officially,
So you'll have a primary then, obviously, and then you'll vie to take on what is believed to be, Congressman Andy Ogles, unless he has primary opposition, which is all, possible, certainly. Mm-hmm. What informs you that you're a Democrat?
Great question. I grew up.
I feel that way.
Yeah, no. That's a great question. I grew up in a household. Well, let me say this. I was born and raised in the Northeast of New York, in the great melting pot of the world. And my family were split Republican Democrat. And so I grew up in a family where I would consider them to be centrists. That's how I would consider myself, to be a centrist. I think maybe the one thing that informs me is a woman's right to choose. That's where I land on that side of the issue. And really for that alone mostly is why I would feel that I would be a Democrat more than anything else.
Do you I want you to continue. I don't want to dig down on that subject before we. I mean, anything else that comes to mind in terms of why you would consider yourself a Democrat as opposed to a Republican? And maybe you're not. I mean, maybe you're obviously you're running as a Democrat. I don't assume that you have to be one or the other. I mean, but anything else that comes to mind?
No. And I'll tell you why I say no. And I go back to the nonprofit for a second, and I don't want to talk about that too much longer. But I think it's important because the people that we help. It's really it's a great feeling when you can help somebody, of course. But we ask a lot of questions when someone comes to us for help, and really what we want to know is, like I said, what do you need and how can we help you get it? So we do this assessment, and one of the questions we never ask is, what political affiliation do you have? Because what does it matter? If you're hungry, we're going to get you some food. If you're sleeping outside, we're going to try to figure out how to get you inside. The people that help, the people that volunteer in the nonprofit, are from all walks of life and from all parties. And we don't talk about politics because it's not about politics at that point. And so when I think about it in that way, I think to myself, in we are such a divided country today, especially in how we speak to one another. But it doesn't have to be that way. It hasn't always been that way. I grew up at a time where the president of the United States, regardless of what his party, was a uniter. And Democrat, Republican didn't make a difference. And I feel like we're at the point.
Wait, Jim, which president was that? Which president was a uniter and not a divider?
I mean, I think if you go back and look at,
because I can't recall one.
Not one at all?
I can't recall one that I can recall moments where the country unified behind a singular event, 9/11.
Perfect.
Obviously. So
great example. That's what I was thinking about.
Would you say that your fellow Democrats consider George W. Bush a uniter and not a divider?
I'd say in that moment in time he was. Absolutely.
No. Just generally speaking, as a president of the United States, because I recall in the aftermath of 9/11, Democrats calling George W. Bush Hitler.
Yeah.
And burning him in effigy.
Most definitely. Yes. There are times in our country, yes, where you can point to. I was thinking about this on the way over. It's funny that you brought up 9/11 because I was thinking about what I just said about the uniter. And there was a moment in time in our country where people were nice to one another. And maybe it was a very short amount of time. Maybe it didn't last very long, but it was still there.
Sure.
It was still evident. It was still there, and it's still possible. Is it probably go back to that? I don't know. All I know is that, for me as a person who wants to help others, to reach down and lift people up, I do that across the divide.
Well, you certainly, when I ask you the question about, what informs your political affiliation and where you fall on the political spectrum, you certainly don't shy away from bringing up, what is obviously the most divisive political topic out there, because, it's a coming together of faith, of rights, and of politics. Where do you land? You bring it up, so it compels the question. So where do you land on this issue of a woman's right to choose until birth?
No, look, this is not a question that I've ever shied away from, and I'll tell you how I feel about it. And it's really, it goes back to my spirituality. So I believe in God, and I believe in God that God made us in His own image, and I also believe that God gave us free will. He gave that to us, and that's what I believe. And so if God was willing to make us in His own image and love us in that way and love us so much He's going to give us free will, knowing that we might not do the things that He would want us to do, who am I to usurp that will?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I land.
So do you believe that, and I ask this question very sincerely and seriously, Jim, do you believe that a mother then has the free will to kill her child? Like a 1-month-old baby.
Is it wrong? Yes. Does she have the free will to do it? Of course she does.
Then why is it against the law?
Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. Why is it against the law? We have in a constitutional republic, we have laws to protect our citizens. And so then the question comes back to what constitutes a citizen? And we could debate that, for the next 15 hours.
Well, but that's what politicians have to figure out, right?
Sure.
When the mother's right to choose ends, and when the rights of the child in her belly start. That's where the abortion debate begins and ends. And there are people that believe that conception is that starting point.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that believe that abortion is acceptable until the moment of birth. My question has always been, well, if we believe that it's acceptable until the moment of birth, why not right after, or why not a month after? So I bring up those extremes to point out that you gotta kind of figure out at some point. For me, at some point, a mother has abdicated her right to choose to terminate the life. At some point down the road, whether that's when the baby's born, or whether it's 8 months into the pregnancy or 6 months into the pregnancy or 4 months, and that's what we ask of our politicians to figure out where the government weighs in on those very, very difficult questions.
Yeah, no, it's not something that we're probably going to solve in our lifetime, you and I, or society. It's, if I go back to the free will for just a second, if you wanted to stop people from having free will, you would have to basically keep them in a cage or be with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to truly stop them from doing whatever it is that they wanted to do. Now, that's not to say that we can't hold them accountable for those actions, and that's a little bit different, right? Having someone give someone free will and say you have free will to do what you need to do, but you're going to be held accountable for those actions. Well, that's really the other side of that is how do you hold somebody accountable for actions, and what actions do you hold them accountable for?
And so my question is not necessarily from a moral perspective, it's from the political perspective, is where should the government weigh in and act as an agent of the life, the third life that's involved, which is the baby's life? And as a politician, would you say that the government should have no say, that should be left to the mother and doctors and families? Or is there a point within the pregnancy that you would suggest that abortion is no longer an option for the mother?
Man, Matt, we hit the third rail like right off the bat.
I mean, you brought it up, Jim. I asked the question, because I got to talk.
One of my guys who's like, stay away from the third rail questions. I'm like, okay.
Right now, Tennessee says that, that abortions are not permissible in this state. Obviously, the Supreme Court has left it now up to the individual state. So I think the voters would want to know where you are on that issue.
I'll tell you, and we'll leave it at this. Pre-birth, I believe in a woman's right to choose, period. That's it. End of sentence.
23 after the hour, Jim Torino's with us. We'll talk other issues, including immigration and some of the other questions about our budgets. That's on the way with Jim Torino, who's a candidate for the 5th Congressional District on the Democrat side. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. All right, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I will get to your questions, your thoughts, your comments for our guest. His name is Jim Torino. He is a Democrat running for Tennessee Congressional Seat District 5. That is obviously currently occupied by Congressman Andy Ogles, and we got a primary to get to next year, but I just wanted to introduce you guys to Jim, have him on the show. We were discussing some of the, the basic underpinnings of your political philosophy, I guess you will, that lead you to this call to service. I want to ask you about immigration. Because you and I first met at the Abrego-Garcia hearing. Do you believe that Kilmar Abrego-Garcia has now received due process?
It seems to be. I would say, yeah, it seems to me. I mean, I'm not close enough to the inner workings of exactly what his case is and where it is today, but it outward apparently, yeah, it would seem like it would.
What do you believe, if you have any thoughts on it, the right outcome of that situation is?
I'm a second-generation American, and my grandparents came to this country literally through Ellis Island. My grandmother was 7 when she came over, and spent 10 days in a steerage cargo and didn't see the sun for 10 days, and tells a story that she was afraid she would never see the sun. And one of the things that thrilled her the most in her whole life was getting off the boat and seeing the Statue of Liberty. Mm-hmm. And, my grandfather came over. My grandfather actually, his mother, my great-grandmother, was pregnant with him when she landed in the U.S., and he used to joke that it was the only free ride he ever got in life. Right. They came here with nothing, and they had to work hard, and really hard to get where they were going to. And they instilled that work ethic in my family and in me. And they were very patriotic. And when I think of, my own family as patriotic Americans who came to this country for a better life and wanted to work hard and pay their taxes and be a good citizen, I think that opportunity should be for everyone who wants to come to this country for the same reason. Mr. Garcia, and across the board. And so we should make it easier for them. And both parties have punted this problem down the road. And
so you're saying you would want to loosen legal immigration?
Not loosen legal immigration, but maybe fast track it. There are folks in this country that are undocumented that have been living and working here and paying taxes. There should be something that we should be able to do for those folks that want to be good citizens of the United States that will fast track their citizenship.
Let me ask in a more basic way, because I think this might inform a lot of the audience where you are on this. Should there be rules as to how you get to the United States of America legally?
Of course, 100%.
What should you do to the people that violate those rules?
Hold them accountable.
How do you do that?
I think part of it is, one, securing our borders. Make sure that we don't have a porous border, and we do. And that's one of those cans we've kicked
not anymore.
Perhaps not anymore, but that's one of the things that we've we've failed to do as a country. All administrations, maybe not, Mr. Trump.
You mean the Biden-Harris administration primarily?
And those before that, for sure.
But you just said you voted for Kamala. They were in charge of the most porous, ridiculously uncontrolled border in American history.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe that there was a bipartisan bill that was on the table that was getting ready to improve the enforcement for immigration that was shut down.
When did that bill get passed, Jim?
It didn't get passed.
Right. Then how is Trump doing right now, as we speak, what Joe Biden said he could not do without more money from Congress? How is it that Trump manages to do it when Biden couldn't? With the same amount of funding, with no congressional approval, with no law passed, Donald Trump came into office, and he has shut down the border.
Shutting down the border is step one, but that's not the end of the process.
No. We're talking about your assertion that Joe Biden needed some sort of congressional approval to accomplish a task that I'm telling you has been accomplished with zero congressional approval.
That wasn't your original question to me.
My original question is, what do you do to the people that violate the rules?
Hold them accountable.
And how do you hold them accountable?
In many different ways. You can send them back.
Send them back home?
You can send them back to the country, of course. Sure, you can.
No, you brought up, so in your answer, you brought up border security. Do you believe the border's secure today?
Do I believe that? Probably not totally secure, no. I would venture to say it's not.
Is it more secure than it was during the Biden-Harris administration?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
You want to be a congressman and you can't answer that question?
Do you think it is?
I think you can answer it. I don't think you want to answer it, Jim. I mean, I think the answer is obvious. It is obvious to anyone with a brain that the border is more secure today because there are more resources at the border, because we have a president of the United States that's actually focused on shutting down the southern border. I don't think it's controversial to say that.
No, I don't think it's controversial to say that at all. Is it completely shut down? No, I don't think it is.
Okay. When you talk about loosening or fast-tracking immigration policy, talk to me about that. Like what do you mean? We currently have, the estimates are that we have, during the Biden-Harris administration, somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 million illegal aliens entered in those 4 years alone. It's conservative estimates. Conservative estimate is that we have 30 million illegal aliens or undocumented workers, however you want to refer to them, in the United States of America here today. I don't know of anyone that would suggest that you would remove the total number of those people. But, is there a certain amount that you would remove? Criminal illegal aliens, for example, those that are committing acts of crimes against American citizens.
I mean, of course, I don't think anybody would argue with that. Violent criminals, and I think this was the initial take on it. Hey, let's remove the undocumented violent criminal. No one's going to argue with that. Mm-hmm. And here in District 5, so let's talk about District 5 for a second.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is accused of human smuggling. He was accused of beating his wife.
In the state of Tennessee, there are 35,000 violent crimes committed each year. 35,000. Mm-hmm. 2% of those are undocumented workers. Mm-hmm. That's not an alien invasion to me. And so I'm wondering, why aren't we focusing on the other 98% of violent crimes here in the state of Tennessee?
Why can't we do both?
We can do both. Why haven't we?
Right. We are.
We're not.
Well, Donald Trump's trying to crack down on crime right now in Washington, D.C., and he's only been met with objections from your political party.
The state of Tennessee just sent some National Guard there.
Are you in favor of that?
Not when we have our own problem. No.
Oh, so you're in favor of bringing the Tennessee National Guard back home and sending them to Memphis?
That's not what I said.
Are you in favor of bringing them to Nashville?
That's not what I said.
Because Nashville has a crime problem too, right?
Nashville has a crime problem.
Well, hold on. Then what do you want to do with the National Guard that's not currently being done in the state of Tennessee?
I don't think we need the National Guard to help support our law enforcement. I think our law enforcement can do their job the way they need to do their job.
Jim, pardon me. I'm not trying to badger you, but you just said we sent National Guardsmen up to Washington, D.C. We need to bring them back home. We've got our own problems back home. What do you want to do with those National Guardsmen?
That's not what I said.
Then please explain to me what you mean when you bring up the National Guard that the governor sent to Washington, D.C. to help with crime up there.
We're talking about the state of Tennessee and the violent criminal. You asked me a question about, which undocumented immigrants should we go after first? Should it be the folks that are picking fruit and helping put food on their table, or should it be violent criminals? And I said violent criminals. No one's going to dispute that.
All right.
And in the state of Tennessee, with 35,000 violent crimes committed and only 2% of of those crimes committed by the folks that we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
why are we focused on the 2% and not the 98%?
And I would
that
suggest
was my question.
we're not. We're focused on all of it.
I don't think we are.
And,
if we are, then...
And you point to me in those areas where we are not focused. Would it be Nashville? Would it be Memphis? Tell me where the biggest problem crime areas in the state of Tennessee are.
I'd say the two biggest are probably Nashville and Memphis.
Okay, so would you agree with me then that if those cities cannot get their crime issues in order, then it is up to the state and to Governor Bill Lee to assist them in that regard?
I would say, you know what? Why hasn't that happened already?
Well, because the Democrats who are in charge of those cities refuse to allow the governor to come in. Now, he could take over. He could call up the National Guard and declare a national emergency or a state emergency in those areas. They choose not to do that. The mayor of Memphis, the mayor of Nashville could pick up the phone and call Governor Bill Lee at any point that they wanted to if they were that concerned about criminal activity in their communities.
Well, this is my point about the federal government worrying about criminal activity or the state of Tennessee worrying about criminal activity. You're worrying about the 2% in the state where you got 98%. What are we doing about that? If it's the National Guard, if it was a question of sending in a National Guard, why haven't they done that already? Why is it now all of a sudden a big issue?
So Jim Torino, Democrat candidate for governor, is in favor of Governor Bill Lee calling in the National Guard in Memphis. Are you or not? Well, are you or not?
No, of course not.
Well, then what are you talking about?
I'm talking about why are we focused on the 2%? We should be focused on the 98%.
We're not. That is a. I mean, I don't know where you came up with that, but we're focused on crime too. And when we did send in the Tennessee Highway Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, an attempt to pick up people right here in Nashville, Tennessee, who stood against that? The Democrats stood against it. Why? Were you against the ICE patrols?
I was against removing people without due process. Yes.
And what immigration process was not followed in those patrols?
I'm not familiar with what the patrols were or how they were picking people off the street. All I know that there were folks that were taken and being removed from this country illegally,
right?
Without their due process,
because
including
they were
Mr. Garcia.
What process is due an illegal alien, Jim?
Same as a citizen.
It is not correct.
That's afforded by the Constitution.
100% incorrect.
We could sit here and debate this for an hour.
No. We will not debate it for an hour because you're wrong and I'm right.
I don't think so.
Illegal aliens are not afforded the same due process as a legal citizen.
The Constitution affords it for people who
you are afforded an immigration process. Correct. That you are afforded a presentation in an immigration court. And if it is determined that you entered the United States of America illegally, you receive deportation orders. That is your due process.
That is due process. Yes, right. We agree.
Right. So an American citizen would never be in that immigration court. The immigration court is specifically set up for people who are in this country illegally. It's a completely different process. It's not the same process like you just said.
If you walked up to somebody and you didn't know who they were, you can't just take them off the street and go ship them to another country. They have due process, and there's a reason for that.
Right, and that didn't happen in the Tennessee Highway Patrol effort. The Tennessee Highway Patrol
happened with Mr. Garcia.
No, Abrego Garcia was ordered to be deported, and he created an asylum claim based on El Salvador in 2019. And El Salvador that doesn't exist anymore, by the way. And he was ordered deported to any other country other than El Salvador. So you're suggesting that he needs to be deported based on his due process rights.
You know what? When the court gets finished with his case, if the court decides that he needs to be deported, then so be it. But at least let's get him.
The courts have already decided it twice.
Then there's no argument for me.
Well, I mean,
he was afforded his due process.
Oh, very good. So outside of that, let's talk in the moments that we have left about physical issues. Democrats are looked at as more of a tax and spend mentality. I would consider conservatives to be more of a borrow and spend mentality. What is your philosophy on the national debt and the overspending on the federal government?
I think each of us, regardless of our political affiliation, has a responsibility to spend, to be fiscally responsible. That's where I land. Be fiscally responsible. Don't spend more than you make. It's one of the reasons we put ourselves in this hole. It's one of the reasons that there's Social Security. It's a suspect right now. You got some folks that, you and I have paid into Social Security for a long time. I know I have, for sure. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be here when I'm around? I don't know. That's suspect to me.
Probably not.
And so, being fiscally responsible is something that really should be bipartisan, in my opinion.
I mean, would you support some sort of mechanism by which we force the federal government to balance the budget? Like an amendment. I mean, it would take a balanced budget amendment, obviously.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, there's, if you go back and look at the pay-as-you-go provision in our federal government, the folks that are on Medicaid and Medicare could be hurt in some time in the future. We get if our budget gets too far out of whack.
Jim, it's like the beginning of a conversation. I know we got into the weeds. We got into the mix. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate sparring with you. Where can folks find out? It's 52 after the hour, out of time. Where can folks find out more about you and your candidacy for Congress?
JimTorino.com. You can go find a little bit more about me. I would love to come back and spar with you more, actually.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I would love that.
I'm all about it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the intellectual combat, and we'll do it again.
Good deal.
JimTorino.com online. There's Jim Torino, candidate for the 5th Congressional District seat, currently being occupied by Congressman Andy Ogles. We'll be back in just a moment on Super Talk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just before 5 o'clock, Michael Lotfi with Americans for Prosperity will be along in the 5 o'clock hour to give us the results of a poll commissioned by AFP to determine who will be eligible for our big debate September 5th. There are some that are a little upset about this poll. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the results. We'll talk about which candidates will be on stage at Cabaret September 5th for the debate that you can hear live on Super Talk 99.7 WTN from 7 until 9 o'clock. That's all coming after the news, plus your reaction to our conversation with Jim Torino. Look, I appreciate the guy for coming on. Jim seems like a nice enough guy. We got into it. He said he'd come back. Here comes the news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.